Good evening, setmates. Welcome to Shadows by Firelight. A stream usually revolving around Werewolf the Apocalypse, but tonight we're going undercover. We're going to go and see how vampires do things. We'll be playing Shadows of New York, which is based on Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. A new edition that came out a couple of years ago has had a number of books come out for it, still several coming up. Before we dive into the game, I just wanted to give a quick reminder in case you haven't heard about it. Tomorrow morning there is going to be a pretty cool panel at PAX, because right now there's an online convention going on called PAX Online. And tomorrow morning, the developers of this game that we're going to be playing tonight, Shadows of New York, as well as the game we're usually playing, which is Heart of the Forest, will be sitting around a table with the developers of a third game that we will probably stream eventually if I figure out how to stream VR. The third company is doing a game called Wraith the Oblivion, which is another setting in the world of darkness where vampires and werewolves are, and Wraith is a game about ghosts, essentially. And their game is called Wraith the Oblivion Afterlife. So those three developers tomorrow are doing a pre-recorded channel which will be streamed at this address. If you want to go and check it out tomorrow morning, it should be, by the calculations I made, it should be around 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I will be there if I can, unless it's behind a paywall. I have not actually looked into that yet. I don't think it is, because the link I just posted took me directly there a bit earlier. There didn't seem to be any logging involved. I could have just, if it had been streaming, I could have just watched it by pressing play, so I'm thinking tomorrow morning will be the same. There will be chat, though, because it will be broadcast on Twitch, so if you want to talk to the developers of either of those three great games, you can do so. I plan to be there, and I hope you will as well. So back to our game of tonight. Essentially, as I was mentioning, this is based on the 5th edition of Vampire the Masquerade. As I mentioned last time, I'm far less knowledgeable of vampires than I am of werewolf, and that is doubly true for the 5th edition. I have read the core book, and that's about it. Nothing wrong with V5. It's a great game. I just haven't gotten around to it. I have a pile of books that I've purchased over the past 10 years, and that I really wish I had more time to read. It just didn't happen. But I did get around to hear a bit about the 5th edition through some of my friends, through some of the people who worked on it. They're in interviews and things like that, and it looks really good. Personally, what I've read and what I've seen sounds really interesting. For me, particularly because it's a return to form and a fresh coat of paint at the same time. There were a couple of things that I preferred. For example, one of the reasons why I preferred werewolf to vampire, for example, were essentially like werewolf is about the now, about your character regardless of your age, whereas vampire, as the game grew, was mechanically focused on younger vampires, but setting wise revolved around really older vampires. As more books came out, more secrets came out, more secret cults, secret sects, more extreme powers and everything. But technically speaking, if you followed the character creation rules, you're building a neonate, and you're not actually going to be playing with any of that. So I think what 5th edition Vampire does, that for me at least, because I know a lot of people who fixed it by just playing elders and playing extremely high level vampires, and that works too, and that's absolutely fine if that's your jive. But for me, vampire, it's more about the experience of becoming a vampire and finding your place in that in that society. A very toxic society at that, but very well developed and very interesting to evolve into. So I prefer my games to be about younger vampires, and that's something 5th edition does. I'm looking there because there's my chat, but sorry, my camera's right there. That's something that 5th edition does a lot. There was not too long ago something called the Beckoning, and a lot of the older vampires have gotten up and left. They have heard this beckoning, and they're just gone. And another sect, which was called the Sabbat, has also been more or less written out. They're still there, they still exist, but they haven't been explored in the context of 5th edition yet. They don't have their entire books yet to tell us how to play them now. And so it's really focusing more on the core, basic, startup, essentially, experience of vampire, which is playing a younger vampire in the Camarilla, or in the Anarch movement and the political intricacies that stems from there. Nothing wrong with Sabbat, nothing wrong with playing Sabbat, but usually when Sabbat comes into play, it's less about politics and more about war. And I feel that war is more of a theme of werewolf than is it a theme of vampire. So I think, for me anyway, for my preferences, what V5 did was a step in the right direction for me. It's fine if you disagree, absolutely fine. Everybody have their own ways of doing things. That's no comment, no judgment on my part. It's just my own preferences jives really well with what they did in V5. Mechanically, it's pretty similar. It's still 10-sided die. They've gone away with numbers on the dices. It's now symbols that either means that you succeeded or succeeded really well, that sort of thing. But the main gist of it feels pretty similar to what we've played before. There was one big change that they did to the system that I find to be interesting. I'd be curious to try it myself in play eventually, because I can see a couple of caveats there, but I really like the core idea of it. In the past, because let me step back for a second. Obviously, we're playing vampires, right? So for those who don't know Vampire the Masquerade, hunger is definitely a thing. You need to drink blood. Obviously, you're playing a vampire, and that is something they've kept in the game, obviously, when they created Vampire the Masquerade. But in the past, essentially the way it worked is that blood was a resource. You started with essentially a blood pool, usually 10, could be more, depending on how... Okay, I'm not going to explain generation, because that's a big deal and that's really complex. But let's simplify it by saying the older you are, it's not exactly that, but let's go with that for now. The older you are, the more powerful you are, and therefore the bigger your blood pool might be. And you would spend that to power your powers, essentially, called disciplines. A lot of them didn't use blood at all, others used several a turn, that kind of thing. And the closer you were to 0 blood point, the hungrier you were. It worked. There was nothing wrong with that method, but it did make it very mathematical. It made it so that you would plan ahead, several turns ahead. Okay, I'm going to do this, and this, and it was no longer... Not it was no longer, but it was a bit less immersive, let's just say. You knew exactly how much blood your power would use, whereas in real life, me as I'm doing thing, I don't know exactly when I'm going to be hungry. I don't know exactly... I can have an idea that things that I'm doing are going to exert me and that I will eventually need to go to bed or eat or things like that. I'm going to eventually need to take care of my essential needs. But it's not something that I can quantify. And that's something that Vampire 5th edition does, which is really cool. Essentially, any time that you do things that in the past would have cost you blood to do, Instead, what's happening now is that you are tempting the beast. And you essentially you roll for it. And if your roll goes fine, you're okay. You're not any hungrier than you were before. If your roll doesn't go too well, though, you start adding hunger die to all of your rolls. So it's essentially if you had a pool of 5 dices, for example, for your action before, now you've got 6. So it can help you to have hunger die, but it can also go horribly wrong. So essentially your beast being aroused, being more active, makes you a bit more likely to succeed at things because your beast is driving you to success. Your beast is telling you sweet nothings in your ears, urging you to do things, pushing you along, but also, if it goes really wrong, your beast can take over. Because your beast is hungry, because you've spent too much blood, and your beast wants to get some now. And the difference between then and now is that now you can't know when it's going to happen. Now you have to take gambits all the time. You have to, every time you're using a power or just healing yourself, you have to weigh in, do I really want to do this now because I'm surrounded by mortals, and if I do this now it might go horribly wrong. Is it safe to risk it or not? So it brings back this element of personal horror in a way that I feel is very, very relevant for Vampire the Masquerade. Now, for my particular interests of werewolf, I assume they're going to adapt something similar to that for Rage and Frenzy, I guess. We'll see where they take it. We have heard very little about Werewolf 5th edition. We'll see where it happens. And that's one of my main interests, actually, with Vampire Masquerade, actually, because, again, it's based on the 5th edition, and we could see things in various upcoming products of Vampire that might give us hints into what's coming for Werewolf. That may not be accurate, I don't know. But in any case, Coteries of New York was a great game. I really loved it. So even if we don't learn anything that might be relevant to Werewolf, we're going to have a damn good time because I have complete and total faith in Draw Distance's ability to... Those are the devs, by the way. Draw Distance made Coteries of New York and Shadows of New York. I have complete confidence in their ability to build a compelling narrative, and I'm looking really forward to seeing what they did with this game. So enough preamble for V5 and vampires in general. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of information dump as usual. As I did with Werewolf when we were playing Heart of the Forest, I will be explaining things as I go along here in this particular game. I might have to do a little bit more than I did for Heart of the Forest because from what I've read, Coteries of New York has training wheels. The game takes you through your embrace, which is the act of being transformed into a vampire by another vampire who will henceforth be known as your sire, and you will be their childer. So you go through the embrace and you learn about the vampiric society through the first couple of chapters, and eventually you're left to your own devices. Shadows of New York doesn't do that. Shadows of New York assumes that you know already about these things. You know about the traditions and stuff like that. So as I play, if the game doesn't explain something that you as a vampire would know, I will explain them. So with that, I think that we are good to go. First things, in the first game, in the previous one, I mean, Coteries of New York, you had a choice of character. You could play a Bruja, a Ventru, or a Toreador. Those are 3 of several vampire clans and bloodlines that exists in the world. You could choose one of those as your character. Now you don't get to choose. You are playing this character right here, who is a Lasombra, which is another one of the clans. I will get into clans as it becomes relevant to what we're playing, because I could spend the next 2 hours just talking about all the clans and what they do and why they're cool, because they're all cool. But that's not what we're here to do. We're here to play this game, so I'm going to focus to things that are relevant. So I will start by explaining, generally speaking, what you need to know about Lasombras before we start. Let's get this out of the way right now, because that's what everyone focuses on when we're talking about Lasombras. Lasombras have powers over shadows and oblivion. That is the thing about the Lasombra. Their powers allowed them to see in the dark, to create globes of darkness so that people can't see, and one of their most iconic powers are the Arms of Aramin, I believe it's called. It's essentially a bunch of tendrils, physically solid tendrils of shadow that can grab and harm your enemies. It's a really cool power, it's super strong, and that is the core of the Lasombra power experience. Most people jump straight to that because it's pretty cool and it's pretty powerful. But there's more to that. The Lasombra are, beyond that fact, the Lasombra are a clan that is pretty old. Back when there were distinctions between higher and lower clan, if memory serves. Once again, my vampire lore might be a bit iffy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they were considered one of the high clans. They were noble, essentially, in the sense that they were classy, well-respected, well-liked, respected, I said that, sorry, honored, let's say. And as the sects developed, I said before a little bit, there was the Sabbat, the Anarch movement, and the Camarilla. As the sects developed, they eventually were one of the founding clans of the Sabbat, which are the quote-unquote evil vampires. The Sabbat is essentially... they're not evil per se, because a lot of them are essentially trying to avert some really bad event from happening called Gehenna, but at the end of the day, they are not on a path known as humanity. They're not trying to remain human. They're embracing that they are beasts. They are embracing that they are monsters. A lot of them do anyway. And the Lasombra, essentially being on that side, became enemies for most of the other vampires, either Anarchs or Camarilla. They're also really involved in human politics, especially from the church side. As you can see here, it's not. I'm not surprised at all to see iconography, Christian iconography here, right here around the Lasombra's neck. There appears to be a whole bunch of skulls on it too, so probably more going with the darkness and monster side of the Lasombra thing. So it's possible that we're literally going to be playing a bad guy or bad girl in this case. I actually don't know. I haven't really played the game at all. Again, trying to play this blind. I don't know what we're going, but whatever we're going to be playing, it's sure to be pretty damn cool and badass. Lasombra, no way around it, are freaking badasses. So I'm expecting to see something that's really exciting and really interesting and probably quite dark. So if dark isn't your thing, you may want to sidestep this one. That said, from what I know, Shadows of New York has not been flagged as problematic or too dark or 18 and up or anything like that, so you should be fine. Just expect the character might not be morally about, hugs and kittens. The other character behind her, I believe, is the Malkavian from Coteries of New York. So I will be briefly talking about the Malkavian, and I will be briefly talking about ghosts and the dead, because now they're a pretty important part of the Lasombra clan, and they were not before. But quickly speaking, Malkavian is the clan of the people who are broken in some way, mentally speaking. There are many reads you can have on the Malkavians. Early on, when the game was mostly about being edgy and dark and horror, Malkavians were essentially complete psychos. They were the person walking in the street with teddy bears loaded with TNT that they would give to children and blow them up. That was what they were going for in first edition. And, well, that wouldn't fly too well for very good reasons today. They were eventually morphed away from that as the game got older, and the editions tried to course correct that and made them more into something that was actually playable and something that wasn't just horrible people trying to murder everyone. Because, I mean, why would you write murder hobos in your game voluntarily? It's okay if someone wants to play a murder hobo, I guess. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but at a certain point it's hard to make a story around a murder hobo that's going to last more than a couple of sessions. So you have to go into something that has a lot more depth. So for the Malkavians, what they did is they made them essentially about perspective. They made them about knowing things others can't. They took what used to be madness and made it about the ability to see beyond the illusions of reality, to see things that others just don't. And that's the aspect that I really like of what the Malkavians became. Playing a Malkavian can be really, really interesting, and can be both disturbing and eye-opening in many ways. So yeah, that's the big thing about the Malkavians. Now, about ghosts here, that's one of the big changes that happened in V5, and it's the last thing I'm going to talk about before hitting new game right there. In the past, there were some clans with necromantic powers, and then you had Obtenebration for the Lasombra. Now all of those powers are under the same discipline, which I think is now called Oblivion, or it could be Necromancy. I'm not quite sure. I'd have to open up the book. But all the concepts about shadows, Oblivion, about ghosts and wraith got all bundled together in the same discipline now. So probably why you're seeing dead and ghost-like people just behind our character right there, and I assume trying to talk or tell her things. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out as we play the game. That's not something that was an aspect of the game before. The clan that had to do with ghosts before was the Giovanni clan, and now apparently Lasombra have an aspect of that as well. I know very little about that. I have not read the Lasombra in the new edition. So that's something I will be learning at the same time as you, essentially, as we play. But I know it's a thing, so I just wanted to warn you in advance if you're a fan of the previous editions. Now this is a thing. So fair warning as well, if you're used to Vampire the Masquerade, 5th edition is very much the game we're used to, but it's also a bit of a reimagining. Some things were changed, and we're going to have to accept that because that's what we're playing. Personally, I have zero issues with it. I think it makes a lot of sense for Little Sombra to be dealing with that now. It fits. And in the greater lore in the background, Oblivion used to be, that's going to be a bit complex, but essentially was connected to not only the Dark Umbras where the ghosts exist, but also an umbral realm, in the Umbra, and they were thematically connected heavily. So essentially now they're just saying, hey, well, now it's just the same thing. So removing some of the complicated nuances that maybe didn't need to be there. So they've streamlined essentially a couple of aspects of the Umbra and some of the more metaphysical elements of the game. Hasn't been delved into a lot yet, so I assume we're going to learn a lot more about these aspects when Werewolf comes out, and that's going to be pretty darn interesting. Enough about me talking. It's been, well, half an hour, so that's way more talking than I should have done, so let's go and start this game. I'm going to... Okay, yeah, new game not load. I'm going to write over this because that was just me playing a couple of screens, making sure that everything works. And here we go. Welcome to my castle. Don't expect everyday logic to work here. It went out the window sometime after midnight, maybe earlier. My kingdom is not of this world, you see. It lies far outside of concrete, tangible reality. I've tried to identify the way people reach it, and I'm convinced it has something to do with the moon. Some say the moon's aura can turn them insane. You've heard the phrases moonstruck and lunatic. The way I see it, moonlight gives them some subliminal permission to reveal their true selves. And so, whenever they let their silver radiance guide them to the gates of this place, they feel different. Once they pass the doorstep, they're ready to act out. A dance of horrors and marvels begins. So now you know why I took the time to explain a little bit about the Malkavians. This is exactly the screen where I stopped playing last time. Themes about moons, about madness, and sanity were heavy in that introduction, so I figured it's probably not a random happenstance that you can see a Malkavian character right behind our Lasombra main character, so I thought it would be important to establish this baseline before we started. Another thing to notice is that this introduction was a lot more animated than anything I remember from the original Coteries of New York. I don't know if that is something to be expected from now on. It almost felt movie-like, a bit of an introduction. But I'm all for it, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. I really liked it. It was very moody, and I'm very curious to see where they're going with all of this. Even here, we can see this smoke coming in, or condensation, I don't know, coming in from the left side, and these characters are moving more than I remember there being movement in the original. So really much looking forward to see where we're going. So it's 3:31 a.m. Welcome to Big Beat Burger. If you're here at this hour, you're not exactly readying up to be a productive member of society come tomorrow morning. More likely, you're praying that the sunrise never comes. Insatiable children of the night gather round, hoping to bask in the afterglow of tonight's victories, unwind after a frustrating series of failures, or simply fight to keep themselves together. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting here, greedily reveling in every interaction they have. They have no idea they're only here for my amusement. To them, I'm just a random girl, sitting in the corner. But this is my domain. I've been coming here almost every night for years. I know where to sit, where to look, and where to eavesdrop for maximum amusement. If you know Vampire, you're going to react to the word domain. I'm not going to explain what that is because I think at this point we're from the perspective of a normal human, so I'll get into that if it becomes relevant. I'm basically a voyeur, and unashamed to admit it, it gave me insight about the human condition I'd never otherwise have gathered, and more importantly, a necessary skill set to make ends meet as a journalist. And that is the sentence that makes me think that we're playing a human. That's where I stop. By the way, the next click is whole new material for me. As I write on my crappy old laptop, patiently waiting for the legion of negative voices in my head to get too tired to offer useless feedback, I keep my senses peeled to pick up stories around me. So that sounds more like we are playing a Malkavian than a Lasombra. Interestingly enough, we might be switching characters, and I did not know that. Unless we're talking about ghosts and spirits talking into the Lasombra's head. I don't know. This is new for me. Of course, a lot of regular events, such as food fights, are nothing to write home about. Hello, Nomad. Thanks for joining us. I literally just started a game, so you didn't miss much. Just me talking about Vampire for half an hour and explaining some of the clans that I think will be relevant to the game, some of the core concepts of Vampire 5th Edition, how it changed in terms of setting and in terms of system, just slightly just to give us something to work with depending on how the game goes. So you're just in time. Literally just started. As I just explained, I think right now we're playing a Malkavian. I don't know. We'll know for sure soon. But in theory, the main character of this game is a Lasombra. So let's figure things out together. Of course, a lot of regular events, such as food fights, are nothing to write home about, aside from my unfortunate tendency to become collateral damage in someone else's battles. Up to this day, I've had to wash my clothes because of Coke, Diet Coke, hot coffee, apple pie, and some sort of improvised honey mustard bomb. Every stain tells a different story. Sometimes this hobby is exhausting. Sometimes it's disturbing. Sometimes it's dangerous, although not as risky as back when I wasn't carrying pepper spray. Still, the sights I've taken over the years here have made it absolutely worth it. I've got so many stories, I don't know where to begin. Before I move on, Nomad, could you just let me know, can you hear me well? I didn't have anyone active in chat yet to ask if the sound balance is okay. Is the game too loud, or can I be heard well? Theatrical breakups, impromptu mourning parties, unexpected friendships forged in the fires of senseless battle. A lady in a gorgeous Givenchy dress ordering a box of takeout chicken nuggets, paying in cash with her hands completely covered in blood. She was asked if she wants a napkin. She said no. Two thirsty macho dudes shamelessly going for it in the corner. Hushed moaning filling the lobby while everyone around valiantly fights to act as usual and maintain an illusion of normalcy. Thank you very much, Nomad. I very much appreciate you taking the time. Thank you. For those who might not see chat right now, I was just confirming that the sound balance was fine. A straight-up kung fu fight between a diminutive cashier and some drugged bodybuilder going through a psychotic episode, trying to break all the windows. The big guy left the joint fully convinced he KO'd himself while the service worker was just standing next to him. Seemed proud of his victory too. A middle-aged hag getting a heart attack after screaming her lungs out not to let Muslims near her food, just because she saw a white girl wearing a hairnet behind the counter. A masked couple robbing the restaurant of 30 hamburgers, forcing the employees to cook at gunpoint. Police later said those were art students reenacting some hipster book they read. This is life. This is humanity at its worst and best. This is the noise that serves as the foundation for my creativity. This is the soma that keeps me going. This is... As pathetic as it may sound, these days this is the only place where I feel alive. Sometimes I think of myself as a leech, feeding on these people's stories, emotions, and personalities just because I'm not satisfied with mine. At times I think of my psyche as some kind of shitty post-modern construct that is fundamentally incapable of honesty, but only yearns for something felt and truthful. Does this even make any sense? I look at the screen of my laptop. 3:47 a.m. At this point, I'm almost somnambulic. But nothing interesting has happened yet. Feels like all the customers are watching each other tonight, hoping for the others to provide a fun diversion. This is my turf, you parasitic douchebags. Next time, go find your own. Think it's time to call it a night. The coffee I always order so that they don't kick me out is undrinkable. Ugh. I reread the rough draft I've been working on for the last 6 hours. Okay, so we're probably the Lasombra lady, Sophia, I think I saw in the corner there. But I think this is before her embrace. And why do I think that? Because she looks a bit more human, essentially, in the picture there than we saw before. Also, she's drinking coffee, and vampires rarely can eat food. Some can. It's very rare. So I'm thinking if she's actually drinking coffee instead of just ordering it to keep warm or to look like she ordered something and therefore must be human, because otherwise it's just weird to go into coffee and not eat anything. That's a common tactic for vampires. To go somewhere, they order something. They don't touch it, but they've ordered something. They have it in front of them, so it looks more normal. Julia, not Sophia. Sorry, her name is Julia. Okay. God damn. This is pure trash. I hold the backspace button until the Google document page is nothing but a calm white slate and let out a sound of deep relief. There's no pleasure more intoxicating for a frustrated writer than raging on someone even worse than them. And what target is easier than the dumb bitch you used to be 10 minutes ago? I check the time again. I need to go. I have an important meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. and I have a hunch it's not going to end well. And it's not because I'm an irresponsible dumbass who's going to need a few cups of coffee to simply function on a basic level despite 4 hours of sleep. It's because I always have a hunch things are not going the way they're supposed to. Click, clack, click, click, clack. The loud clatter of keyboards assaults me from all sides. Makes this splitting headache unbearable. Used to be, I dreamed of nothing else but being a part of the New York Lodestar editorial team. It was the first magazine I started reading regularly. The first magazine I ever bought for myself. Now simply hearing the word Lodestar is enough to ruin my mood. Never mind seeing all these old farts phoning in more reactionary opinion columns and Wikipedia-level analysis of current events. Click, clack. Click, click, clack. They used to destroy and rebuild my entire worldview every month. They shaped my thinking about politics, arts, journalism. They even pointed me towards my favorite cigarette brand, for God's sake. And some talented people started leaving for greener pastures. Some got too wrapped up in their own neuroses. Some became complacent. All of them committed the sin of allowing themselves to grow older. Fresh blood was deemed unnecessary, even though young freelancers kept being bled dry. These days, whenever someone from outside Lodestar talks about Lodestar, it's because of a few idealistic contributors willing to accept meager pay while putting in some serious work. Dumbasses. Other than that, the magazine specializes in publishing pale echoes of provocative ideas I heard somewhere else a few years prior, wrapped in an aesthetic that hasn't been cutting edge for a decade. No wonder the readership is in freefall. But even though the ship is sinking, the old guard won't let it go down without a fight. As in, If anyone from the outside attempts to board the vessel in hopes of fixing its course or its holes, they will be swiftly taken care of. I should know. Been there, done that. As it stands, the only full-time staff member who doesn't make me regularly attempt to cringe my face off with his writing is Lodestar's editor-in-chief, Brian. I do not know how to pronounce that. Let's just call him Brian. No insult meant to any. Essentially, I just don't know how to pronounce it, and I would rather not try and offend anyone. My apologies. So, is Lodestar's editor-in-chief Brian, the man sitting in front of me right now. Of course, he only has time for editorials these days. A drop in the sea of needs. Managerial duties hit him hard. It's the second time he lets out a theatrical cough like this. He said his piece. Now it's up for me to react, and I'm coming up blank. But what do you want me to say, Brian? I'm pissed off. I can tell you've already made up your mind, but you still want to go through the motions, just to make me feel listened to. Whatever, let's do this. So we have our first choice in the game now. Brian, the guy is guilty of major fraud. The man is a sexual harasser, Brian, or you're protecting a complete piece of shit here. Well, whatever it might be, between someone guilty of major fraud or a sexual harasser, in both cases, that makes that person a piece of shit. So let's just call it what it is. And not protect a complete piece of shit. Now look, I know my article sounds like character assassination, but it's just because the guy gave me enough ammo to make him look like Swiss cheese once the story goes live. My sources are legit. They've provided receipts for everything. They faced all kinds of injustices and are crying out for help. So why are you siding with a corporate shithead and not them? Your sources are not the problem here. I never said they were. You're avoiding the core of the issue. No, I believe I've pinpointed it in a precise way. If it were up to me, I'd greenlight the article here and now, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. But you're killing the article just because some rich shithead told you he doesn't like it. Get real. This is not about some millionaire jerk calling me to make an offer I can't refuse. What is it about then? Because it looks awfully like it's about my bosses telling me this outlet can't afford the legal action we have already been threatened with. So, millionaire interference. Oh, for crying out loud, Julia. Don't make me treat you like a child. You know how this works. I publish your story, this Thiel versus Gawker all over again. A lawsuit here, a lawsuit there, until we're bled dry. I have a mortgage. I have 3 mouths waiting to be fed at home. I have an amazing team that doesn't deserve to be torn apart over some... Don't you think it's telling you mentioned your mortgage first? Silence. Just asking questions. Well, so far, I do believe I like Julia. I know better than to get into these empty semantics arguments with you, Miss Sawinski. You're good at them. The problem is, you're still not good enough. Meaning? You're too in love with weaving a good story and establishing a seductive narrative to let facts get in the way. You've got enough boring suits with no principles on board these days. They always give you facts, because that's all they can do. I'm using facts as a way to approach some kind of truth. Except facts can blindside you. And Double Spiral has enough facts to water down your story to the point where it makes no sense to publish it. Their HR and PR are working overtime to deliver a convincing counter-narrative, and they're doing a great job. Won't mitigate the damage completely, but will put every little thing in question. Jesse Montgomery is a racist, a fraud, a sexual predator, and a downright satanic fuckhead. Julia, let me say it again. Jesse Montgomery is a racist, a fraud, a sexual predator, and a downright satanic Fuckhead! Do you personally believe it or not? This is not. You've listened to the tapes. You've read the transcripts. You've seen the documents. You've got the files. I'm asking for your personal opinion. Do you believe it or not? Click, clack. Click, clack, click. Of course I do. But that's beside the point. It's not. Look, how about I just say it out loud and save us both some time? We're not having this conversation because there's an actual conversation to be had. You set up this meeting knowing very damn well there's only one way it's going to end. You've got a mortgage and 3 mouths to feed. You prioritize the well-being of your direct surroundings over some nebulous concept of greater good. I get it. I really do. Yet for some reason, it seems like you're only prolonging this conversation and rationalizing your decision so that I forgive you? Officially exonerate you? I'm not the bad guy here, Julia. Yes, you are, or I wouldn't say you are. Ooh, so what are you? Edgy, I like that. What are you then, in your own words? A man who doesn't want... Okay. A man who does what is necessary to protect his own. So I don't count as your own anymore? He mutters something under his breath, ending with a self-pitying chuckle. I don't know if you'd even want to work under a scumbag like me from now on. Aw, come on! Don't turn this into a pity party. No, I'm absolutely a scumbag. And why is that? Because I'm firing you. My thoughts are scrambled. For a brief moment, the state of my bank account displays before my eyes with startling clarity. A howling void opens in my chest and starts traveling towards my stomach. No, don't panic yet, you idiot. Get more information. Now. There must be a catch. What about my work? You're joking, or is this final? Okay, well, I'm trying not to get fired or to get more information, so I'm gonna try this. Let me get this straight. Ever since we met, I've been working on stories and pieces no one else in your office would touch with a 10-foot pole. Constantly interviewing total nobodies, always busy traveling to the middle of nowhere, or regretting my last trip, repeatedly ordered to clean up someone else's mess. Julia, all your long-winded spiels about how the disposable work is the most important work, and suddenly you only remember the disposable part? My feelings about the quality of your work remain the same as ever. It was vital. It kept the magazine going. I will always appreciate it. Then why would you threaten to fire me? I would never threaten you. It's a done deal. They've made their decision perfectly clear. They? What they? Who is this they? He glances left and right, and then points upward for a short moment. When he speaks again, it's in a hushed voice. You know, the big kahunas. Can't really question them, and they wanted your head on a silver plate. He's not looking me in the eye. You're not joking. I would never joke about stuff like this. It's real. Fucking hell, it's real. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it, all to hell! All these years, all this grind, all my plans, and for what fucking hassle? You know I deserve better. And I always deserve better, and it always ends with me going down the drain back to the sewers. Fuck! No. Take a few deep breaths. Don't lose the plot now. Keep yourself together, you idiot. The moment you show weakness, they go for your throat. Get back in control. That is an extremely Lasombra thing right now we're going through. This kind of thinking, I get why she's going to get embraced in the Lasombras. You can't do this. I wish I didn't have to, but it's a lost cause. No, I mean it's impossible. Julia, you can't fire someone who's never been hired in the first place. It It takes him a few seconds to put on his "oh, I get it" face, let out a troubled gasp, and start massaging his temples. Lodestar has been my biggest source of income for the past few years. That much is true. But technically, nobody has ever hired me here. It was all freelance jobs. A full-time position only served as a kind of a dangling carrot, a promise of a decent pay grade, career perspectives, maybe even some kind of insurance to save my failing health. And the recognition I would get for being a part of the Lodestar team. A position that everyone around me seems to respect, aside from me. And why did I want it so much? There will be a time to mourn what could have been. For now, I should act like I don't care. You know what I mean? If I let you work, even under a fake name, it would be a guillotine for me. This is ridiculous. You know I'm going to start shopping this story around the second I leave this room, don't you? Of course I know. I told him. Any response? Let us worry about that. Well, that doesn't sound ominous at all. Click, clack. Click, clack, click. I'm just going to take a second to look at the art for a bit. Interesting enough. It kind of looks like a cafe type place, a bit like we were earlier on, but it's a place of employment apparently. A bunch of people over behind that screen, and their boss somehow in the same room as everyone working. Interesting. I do wonder if I could get accustomed to one of these loud mechanical keyboards some people here love to use. Whenever I did my work here, I was still expected to bring my own crappy laptop and sit closer to the lobby. Always on the outside, no matter how hard I try to break in. A vibration in my back pocket feels like a bad omen. I decide to ignore it for now. I've been working on this fucking story for, I don't know, 16 months, on and off. I know. You kept cheering me on. I know. We've even agreed on the pay I'd receive. I know. I'm 2 months behind on my rent. No, wait, 2.5. I catch him off guard. He's momentarily taken aback and then gives me an empathetic stare. Don't look at me this way. You don't have the right. I didn't know. Well, now you do. Look, if there's anything I can do to help. If you can't tell your big kahunas to fuck off, I don't think there's a single thing. Julia, you pull out a smoke and light it up. Gotta get back in control. Sorry, spilled a bit of water on my mouse there. Please don't do that. There's a smoke detector here. No worries. Nick turned it off a few weeks ago. Probably the most creative thing he's done in the past 5 years. Good old Nick. The perfect 21st century cinema reviewer. Never had an original thought of his own. Just relies on his purely algorithmic taste to stay likable. And the best thing is, it works. Funny. I used to dream about his job. It was Brian who killed this dream, making me realize Nick won't be unseated anytime soon, and offered to teach me the ways of an investigative journalist instead. It wasn't the career I ever wanted to pursue, but to my dismay I turned out to be surprisingly good at it, until this Montgomery thing happened. Serves me right, lesson learned. Should have pursued my dreams instead. Stop it. Nicholas is a good friend, a respected critic, a member of my team. And put out that smoke. People tell me I let you step all over me. Why do I even let you act this way? Because you once told me honesty is most important in a mentor-student relationship, and that it works both ways, and because I thought we were friends. He bites his lip and stares sideways to avoid my eyes. At the end of the day, bosses aren't friends. Must have been a terrible mentor if I didn't even teach you that. I'm gonna try to play... Okay, so we have the option to say, could have been better. Probably true. Or you're still responsible for me. I suppose that would be a way to somehow stay a bit in his good graces, or at least get some money for rent. Oh no, you're not getting off this hook that easily. You're still my mentor, and I will make sure you take responsibility. You're getting rid of me, at least point me in the right direction. I need to get my shit together fast, and I can't do it on my own. Fair. I might have failed as a guide, but I will do what I can not to leave you stranded, okay? There are options. None of them are a remedy for all your troubles, but... wait a second. Another vibration in my pocket. Another foreboding feeling. This time I reluctantly take the smartphone out of my pocket. If it has to rain, why not let it pour? A new email. A lengthy one. And the sender, speak of the devil. No, this can't be. Christ. I just got an email from Mila Lopez. She claims she's just been laid off from Double Spiral, same as Mike Antonoff and Jared Rivera. What? What happened? I'll spare you all her insults, okay? The key thing is, it seems their HR knows all the confidential information about my journalistic investigation and used it to shut everyone's mouth. Hell, apparently Montgomery walked up to Lopez as she was emptying her desk and told her to thank me for being a, quote, dumb and careless... I'm not gonna say that. It's the C word. Brian goes pale. I think he has a very good reason to. You fucking scumbag. You outed my sources. What? What? Of course not. What are you even saying? Oh, don't you dare play coy. It must have been either you or me, no one else, and you know the way I work. My investigation was basically untraceable, both on and offline. Carefully picked meeting spots, encryption upon encryption, every direct quote rewritten 5 times, just in case, all sorts of red herrings scattered around. I know my shit, you know I do. And this timing? Did you just pass a flash drive to your beloved big kahunas during a meeting as a sign of goodwill? Look, I get you're upset, but why don't we just talk this through calmly? I could say, alright, sorry for no fuck you. Or, let's take it step by step. Fuck you. You're right, we should. Nah, fuck off. All of these seem pretty equivalent to me, but I think I prefer the ring of, alright, sorry for no. Fuck you. Fury takes the wheel, and I'm just here along for the ride. I can't do anything about it. In a deranged way, realizing you're just a passenger in your own body feels liberating. Let's just see it all unfold. Okay, interesting parallel there. Considering eventually she's going to be a vampire and she's going to have a beast inside of her who's going to take control on occasion. Calmly? Fuck you, Brian. Julia? I've been paranoid for months and months, acting like everyone I didn't know was an assassin or a corporate spy. I know I haven't messed up, not in a way that would implicate all of them. You goddamn, you thought you could get away with this. I haven't done anything improper. Don't push the blame on me. So what? You're claiming it's my fault because you're never the guilty one? It's always the bosses, the economy, the obligations you have, and now me? You're being silly. Quit with this martyr bullshit. Calm down or I'll have to... You immoral shithead. You motherfucking calm down for God's sake. And so it goes. I yell a lot of words I wanted to say for a long time, but held back. I fling a lot of insults I've been workshopping for years, hoping I'd never use them. I break a few things. At times, for a split second, I see pity in somebody's eyes. It's gonna haunt me for a long time, but in the heat of the moment, I don't care. These people, no. This company has nothing left to offer me. So at least, let me take this catharsis. Indiana security guard has to escort me out of the building, and that's the end of my journalistic career. I just feel like my world has crumbled into nothing. I mean... Okay, I don't know who Dakota is. That's new. I mean, you have every right to. Like, Jesus. If I were you, I would have already broken down in a sobbing mess. I'd love to, but I'm on a subway, far too proud to cry in public, even now, and... It's stupid, but I feel like someone out there keeps destroying everything I hold dear just to see my reaction. Like it was a prank show and someone was waiting to record me crying. That's actually a thing in Vampire. Literally, one of the clans called the Ventru, who are all about power, control, money, things like that. There's a game some of them like to play where they choose a champion in a city, and like 2 or 3 of them will play this game. They're each going to choose a champion essentially and try to wreck that champion's life. No, actually, scratch that. I think I got it wrong. One person, exactly right. Okay, one person chooses a champion, and all of the other Ventru will try everything they can to destroy that person's life and just break them. Whereas the person who chose this person as their champion will try to defend them. It's used through influence that vampires tend to get through essentially, yes, money, but also getting a whole bunch of people in their pockets. Vampires use that influence to do all kinds of things, usually to protect themselves and get better sleeping arrangements, essentially, because of course for vampires sleeping is a big deal. But also when you're a jerk and a Ventru, sometimes it's to play a game, friendly game with your friends where you ruin someone's life. I don't think that's what's happening here, but it's definitely a thing in Vampire that sometimes Vampire do that for fun. So she has a feeling that someone is trying to destroy everything she holds dear. Just my reaction could actually be a thing. It was like a prank show and someone was waiting to record me crying. So out of sheer spite, I'm doing my best not to cry. Fuck you, whoever and wherever you are. Then again, it really could be something I would see Lasombra do to test someone they're thinking about embracing. Because in Vampire, when you choose a child, it's a big deal. It's not something you do very often. One of the reasons, the big reason, is because vampires have rules. They're called tradition. And the right of progeny is something that only the most powerful vampire in the city, called the Prince, can give. And they don't give that often, and they don't give that easily. For vampires, it's a question of survival, actually, because every time they bring another vampire into their fold, they're taking a huge risk. When you embrace someone and that person turns out to be a complete moron, that complete moron could spill the beans, could break what they call the Macarade, which is another rule, where essentially vampires are not allowed to reveal to mortals that they exist at all. The reason for that is exactly the same as for werewolves, if you were there when I was talking about the litany, is because they're afraid of what mortals will do if they rise up against them. That comes from way back when there was the First Inquisition, and a whole lot of supernatural creatures were killed. And now in the setting of Vampire 5th edition, there is actually currently, we're going through sort of a storyline with what they're calling the Second Inquisition. So their worst fears have actually happened. It's happening. There are governments, human governments, who know that the supernatural exists. For now, vampires specifically, we don't know if they learned about the other ones because the other games are not out yet, but they definitely know about vampires, and they're actively hunting them down. And that's a huge problem for them. So embracing is a big deal because it's a risk. It's always been a risk ever since the First Inquisition, and it's not something that they do lightly. So most vampires have ways of selecting their childer, and a lot of that is often tied to what clan they are. In the sense that it's not a racial thing like you might see in other games where it's an issue because all of the members of the same race tend to be portrayed in the same way. That's wrong, and that's absolutely not accurate. But in Vampire, you choose someone of a particular mindset. You choose someone to come into your clan because they're going to fit into that clan. So there's a lot more... most members of the same clan will tend to do things of a certain way, and it makes sense because they were chosen for that, essentially. And for a lot of clans like Lasombra, like Ventrue, the clans that are really into control, they tend to, more than choose someone of a particular type, they tend to mold them into the ideal child. They're going to make them go through certain life experiences to shape them into what they want them, or to see if they're going to break, or to see how they're going to react. And only after the sire thinks that the child is ready, then they will come in, then they will turn that person into a vampire. So here, considering the proclivities of Clan Lasombra, I could actually see one of them trying to essentially ruin Julia's life to see if she's going to be strong enough or if she's going to break. If she breaks, well, she's not Lasombra material. If she comes out stronger, meaner, more badass, welcome to the clan. I don't think the fact that she got fired plays into that. I think she put her nose where some other vampire didn't want her to be, but they're making into a thing that isn't tied to this one particular event. It seems like she's went through a lot of crap, and that absolutely could be related to her upcoming embrace. So, out of sheer spite, I'm doing my best not to cry. Fuck you, whoever and wherever you are. That's the most Julia Sawinski thing I've heard. Spite as the greatest motivator, huh? Not feeling particularly motivated to do anything right now, to be honest. I just want to stay in my bed until my shithead landlord calls the cop to forcefully evict me. Not surprised. Shit. I know that whenever life decides to fuck you over, it's always one thing after another, but this is too much. How much is too much? Let's recap this last week of June 2019. Oh my god, 2019. That was a million years ago. I've been kicked out of my job. Well, not that I've ever been hired, so let's just say my mentor broke every vague promise he ever made to me. A big thing I've been working on for a year and a half went down the toilet. It's all useless. My boss didn't protect my sources properly, and now they keep trying to reach me through every possible channel, or threaten me, or just yell at me, and they have every right to react like that. All of my side gigs were shut down. Nobody's replying to my emails. Someone's been dragging my name through the mud behind the scenes, and it worked. I still have no idea who's sending these shitty messages around. I've been asking, but listen, don't worry about it. I'm not going to stand idly by and watch you get cancelled by some mean-spirited, delusional... I said, don't worry about it. I have 3 unread messages from my landlord. Message previews were stressful enough. A call came from Chicago, apparently. Dad has bladder cancer. Mom is in hysterics. She'd go crazy if she heard about my situation, so I have to pretend everything is okay whenever she calls. And she calls every day, and she just won't hang up before she offloads all her burdens on me. And I can't blame her because we all had to learn to cope with Dad's psychopathic tendencies somehow. I was robbed. All my documents and what little money I had, gone. Don't even know when or where it happened, and it's driving me crazy because I'm always extremely wary of pickpockets. The list goes on. I don't want to sound paranoid, but it really feels like a concerted attack. Paranoid is good. Anyway, I know you always hand-wave this topic away, but just remember that if anything happens, my place is your place. You don't have to get through it alone. I do. I've been a trouble magnet, and as self-centered as I may be, I don't want it to affect you. I know. Listen, I have another call. All right. Just call me if anything happens. No matter how dumb it seems, okay? And swing by whenever you can. I will. Thank you. See ya. I put my phone away, exhale, and blankly stare in front of me. Christ. I glance at my reflection in the window. Just look at this idiot. Whenever the situation requires me to dress formally, I still feel a bit like a child cosplaying as an adult. Let's stop right there. Actually, this is a thing. Okay, cool. Right now, I'm extremely sure mentioning the fact that she looked at a reflection in the window was 1,000% on purpose. It sounds very silly, but I love that they did that. And let me explain why. Every clan have a curse of some form. Most of them come from their progenitor Cain from way back when in the biblical times. Some of them are way too recent clans to have been cursed by him, so there are other lore reasons to explain why they have a curse, but everyone has one. In the case of the Lasombra, they have the classic vampiric curse of not appearing in mirrors, essentially. They just don't have a reflection. So they had to go there, and I'm glad they did. They used this opportunity to do something with it before she got embraced, because it's going to be a whole thing when she gets embraced. And even if they don't do anything with it, just the fact that they put that there, it's a hint. It's a little thematical glue that ties the whole theme of being Lasombra together. Even if they don't go there, even if they don't even mention later on once she's embraced that she can't see herself, I'm really glad that they put that there. It's for those who are in the know, this is cool. And also, by the way, the clan flaw for the Lasombra was shifted a tad for V5. They did something that's actually pretty cool. They made it so that essentially objects have an issue recognizing they're there at all. So that's why a mirror might not show them, or a window might not reflect them, but it also goes a bit deeper in V5. Right now she's using computers a lot, but when she gets embraced, she's gonna have a hard time doing that. Like a phone, for example, when you're pressing it, it's supposed to register your heat, and that's how it knows that you're pressing buttons. If it's not mechanical, like a physical keyboard, a thing like a phone might not register that she's trying to interact with it at all. She may not be able anymore to unlock her phone or text at all. I don't remember the exact system in V5, but I know that curses have ratings. Back in previous editions, the curse was a flat thing. It was standard. Everyone in the same clan had the exact same curse. There was no one who was worse off than anybody else. But in V5, how much your curse affects you has a rating. I don't remember what affects what, in the sense that what makes it worse or better. I think it might be tied to how human or monstrous you are, but I don't remember clearly, so don't quote me on that. And in the case of the Lasombra, for this curse, you may have just that mirrors don't show up to you, or it can go all the way to motion tracker, for example, might not sense that you're there at all. So imagine being this proud, badass vampire and you can't even enter a grocery store because the automatic door will never see you there. You might wave your hands in front of the sensor, it's not going to open. You look dumb, and that becomes a big deal for a clan that's all about power and control. Which I think is actually a stroke of genius, because I do remember that age factors somewhat in there, so it makes it so that younger Lasombras have an easier time dealing with technologies and things like that than older ones do, which becomes a whole aspect that comes into play in the power balance of that clan, because you kind of need the young ones now to handle these things, because technology is not going away, and you need someone to handle your emails and stuff of that nature. If you can't keep up with technology, if you can't keep up with the way news is now spread around the world, well, you're going to be one step behind your enemies, and that can't happen. So you end up more reliant on your childer, or at the very least on your ghouls, which are servants. Essentially, vampires make ghouls as servants, which is essentially when you give your blood to a mortal, you don't turn them, you just give them a bit of blood, that turns them into ghouls, which are essentially mortals, just a bit tougher. They stop aging, and that's about it. The other thing is that if you're a youngster who's not under the thumb of an older Lasombra, you have an edge over them. You are able to stay on top of technology, and they are not. At least not by themselves. So that gives you a lot more independence than they do, which I think is very cool. In really affects the power dynamics of a clan that's all about power. So that's one of the many reasons I think that V5, when I said earlier, has a fresh coat of paint. That's one of the things I really like. The curses of all the clans are so much better. I mean, I'm not dissing on what came before. I loved Vampire for decades before V5 came in, and that's not going to change. I really like the game, but that particular point there is definitely an upgrade in my sense. Again, if you disagree, that's absolutely fine. If you prefer the old ways of doing things, that's fine. But I think that what they're going with now is stronger. It adds a lot more depth to the game. All of the flaws that I have seen so far are things that I can see having an actual influence, an actual impact on the game. In the past, while they were all interesting and might come into play, some of them were not as impactful, I felt personally, and might not have, probably would not have come into play in a meaningful way, essentially. They were cool, and that's fine, and honestly, that's enough. But now, I feel like the curses are going to be part of who you are. They will affect you as a character. They will have an impact, and they will add to the game as opposed to being there. Not all of them, though, mind you. A lot of the clan flaws were super cool and definitely were going to come into play and have an impact. Just not all of them. and that was fine. It worked. It was more flavor essentially than a gameplay feature, and now they're both. Personally, I just think that's better. So back to the game. Still feels like a child cosplaying as an adult. Okay, we read that part, so let's keep going. Should have just followed the dress for the job you want advice and continued dressing up like a trust fund kid who keeps partying on Brooklyn rooftops for years without a care in the world. It's only after a while that I realize the car is empty. Unnaturally so. I start feeling uneasy, but someone enters my peripheral vision. Wow, okay, that's a Lasombra. Shadows all over the place, isn't it? But not in key places. Someone's trying to control shadows to be creepy, and it's working. I'm assuming that's going to be our sire. And that's the last thing I consciously register. The world dissolves. When I come to, I'm out of the subway, standing in a back alley I don't recognize. It's pretty dark. My eyes start adjusting and I try to figure out what happened. There's a gun in my hand. A faint silhouette at my feet. It's not moving. Somebody stands in front of me, covered in shadows. I can't fully make out her face, but she's staring at me with visible intent. She speaks. Her voice is raspy and androgynous, her tone hateful and mocking. Aren't you a nasty one? What's going on? Who are you? Don't play coy. My mind goes blank. I look at the ground. There's a body riddled with bullet holes, and I recognize who it is. Was. Well, it's obviously either Dakota or Brian. I'm gonna go with Brian. Oh, interesting. The corpse belongs to Mike Antonoff, one of the double spiral whistleblowers. My source. He was just threatening to get back at me a few hours ago. Before I can feel even the tiniest bit of compassion, I face a terrible realization. They will think I'm guilty. Oh my God. Am I guilty? How is this real? It wasn't me. What happened to him? What have you done to me? You've done something to me, haven't you? Back in the subway, that was you, wasn't it? A man is bleeding out at your feet, and you're turning this around on me somehow. I haven't done anything to him. Again, don't play coy. You knew him. He was mad at you. You started telling him sob stories about your situation. He wasn't having none of it. You got mad. Things escalated. He died. This isn't true. It's plausible, but that doesn't make it true. Or does it? This is just a nightmare. It doesn't even make sense. It must be a dream. And if it isn't, the person in front of me must be responsible. There's a faint voice in my head screaming that it's her world, that I'm just living in it. What the fuck have you done to me? Nothing yet. But I'll do what I can. But I'll do what I can to get you locked up for life. This is a murder in the first degree with special circumstances. Her detached voice and nonsensical tone only reassures me this can't be real. I refuse to believe it is. Before I even manage to think this through, I point the gun at her. Oh yeah, that's gonna end well. If I did murder him, you wouldn't be acting like that. You wouldn't be standing in front of me. You'd be running away, calling the police, begging for help, yelling that I'm a psycho. Oh, you are a psycho. But I'm not a coward. I won't let you walk out of here alive. This doesn't make a single lick of sense. Tears well up in my eyes. Why are you doing this? Because sometimes one has to confront what they're really made of. There's no two ways about it. She's gotta be nuts. Slowly but surely, she starts walking toward me. Stop right there or I'll shoot! Go on. It's the only way you can get off the hook, isn't it? The only way you can survive. But you will definitely prove you aren't a monster I claim you are. What the fuck is this tone? So controlling, inauthentic, patronizing. I'm serious! For your own sake, you'd better be. She keeps getting closer. Maybe I did kill Antonov. Maybe I don't deserve to live. Maybe it's less tiring not to live. Maybe I should just let her take care of me. Maybe I will just wake up. Or maybe this insane reality needs to be rejected as violently as possible. Maybe a world that wants to destroy me deserves to be destroyed. She's right in front of me. It's now or never. I'm gonna shoot her, and that's not gonna end well. I close my eyes and squeeze the trigger. A loud bang echoes through the alley. I'm afraid to look at what I've done. I've been to a shooting range once and felt absolutely horrified by pistols. Such a small thing, but it can easily puncture a hole in the fabric reality is made of. Never knew I'd be able to use it against another human being. The very thought makes me want to puke. You were a right choice after all. I'm so glad. That's why I shot her. I had a feeling that this was what my would-be sire wanted. It looked like a setup, and running away or cowering or something is just not something that fits with the Lasombra way of things. So I thought shooting her would please her, and it sounds like I was correct. I would be curious to see what happens if you don't shoot her, though. It sounds like she might not have chosen me, and I don't know if that would have been a game over right there. Probably not. It's a bit early for that, but who knows? You haven't allowed yourself to break, but you've crossed the line I needed you to cross. There's a silent flame in you that could become an inferno if left unchecked. I sure hope it will. She's still alive. Her voice is coming from behind me. She puts her hands around my waist, and her cold mouth touches my neck. I can feel that my shirt getting violently torn off. I don't understand, but I'm too dazed to protest. That was your final test. Congratulations. You have proven yourself worthy. I can feel something sharp sliding into my neck. Wow, that is a pretty darn cool picture. I mean, it's sad and it's horrible, but it's selling the moment really well with the little... Well, it stopped moving, but the movement of the hand was selling it quite well. Oh, it's starting again. Not as well as it did originally, but still. I can feel something sharp sliding into my neck. It's not too painful, just startling. Think, a doctor pushing a needle into your vein without a proper warning. Then it hits me. Pure bliss. That might come to a surprise to anyone who hasn't ever played Vampire the Masquerade, but when you feed on someone, it is like ecstasy. It is really, really good for them. They call that the kiss. Goes two ways, actually. It's just as good for the vampire as well. For them, this is way better than sex. This is better than anything else, essentially. Feeding is a... Well, obviously it's a big deal for vampires, but it's also extremely pleasurable. It's something they seek out, not just so that they can stay in control, but also it's something they enjoy doing passionately. Of course, some of them avoid it as well. I'm trying to paint a clear picture here. I'm sorry, I'm just going a bit all over the place, but some of them, despite it being extremely pleasurable might be morally against it, and that's fine. It's not so good that you can't go into gray areas, or that you can't build a character, for example, that might feed on rats, for example. You could do that. A lot of character types do that, especially in the Nosferatu clan, for example. But feeding off an animal, it feeds you, but it won't produce the kiss, essentially. So yeah, here what the character is going through is exactly that. Despite the fact that it should hurt, she's actually into this. Well, it doesn't show that she's into this from that particular image, but it is extremely pleasurable. There are things that are called blood dolls, for example, mortals who are made aware that vampires exist and who willingly serve vampires or work in their bars or things like that on purpose, just for the occasional pleasure of being fed upon. And before you ask, of course, because some of you might be going, okay, but why would they want to die? They don't, actually. Most of the time when a vampire feeds, they will leave the person alive. Even the most monstrous one will usually leave them alive, because leaving a trail of corpse behind you every day or so is just not really a good plan. Plain and simple. Someone's going to catch you, or someone's going to catch wind of you, is what I'm trying to say, essentially, and then you end up breaching the Macarade, or worse, you might end up dead, because there are hunters in the world, and before there was the danger of another Inquisition, and today, well, the Second Inquisition is a thing, so all the more reason not to kill. So vampires have the ability to heal the puncture wounds of their teeth very easily. Essentially, when they're done feeding, they just lick the wounds, and for some reason, it's never really been explained why it works, but the saliva of the vampire somehow heals those two puncture wounds, and the human it's fine afterwards. Might need to go to the hospital if they drank a bit too much, because, of course, low blood, but they'll be fine, essentially, in a couple of days, worst case scenario. They can kill if they want, obviously. It's just usually not a good idea. In V5, they're doing something that I find very interesting. If you remember earlier on, I was talking about the hunger mechanic, essentially the extra dices that you get the hungrier you are. That can help, but also the more you have, the more you are in risk of losing control. If you want to lose hunger dices, you have to feed. So when you feed, you can remove 1 or 2 dices, but you can never remove your last hunger die unless you drain to kill. If you feed on a mortal enough to kill them, to bleed them dry, that is the only time you get to remove your final hunger die. That is the only time when you've killed that your beast is finally sated and goes back to sleep, until you take a risk and use your power of your blood, and you risk raising it, awakening it, essentially. That is an extremely cool mechanic. I really like what they did there. It makes it so that it's tempting, not just for the character, but also for the player. If you're going somewhere dangerous and you're going to need a lot of blood, you may consider, even if you're a good guy, maybe just this once. It's a great way, narratively, to start your characters, your good characters, essentially, down that slippery slopes that's going to eventually turn them into monsters. Because make no mistake, in Vampire, you are playing a monster. No one's a good guy for long in Vampire. it's one of their themes, essentially. You can start really nice, but over the years, decades, and the centuries, most vampires turn into monsters. Even those, as I said before, you have the Sabbat, which are more monstrous, but even those in the Camarilla or in the Anarch, older ones tend to be monsters as well. The difference is they're just better at lying to themselves about it. Also, here, another thing I wanted to show here, you see these very interesting effects here that come, because it's raining, but within the rain you can sometimes see some drips of red, essentially, some kind of like biting into an orange, like the splash of liquid there. But here's what we're having here is the same, but with blood. It is fantastic. Considering I'm being bit right now, this is, wow, just pure art right there. The dopamine receptors I've considered completely fried until now suddenly recover and start bombarding me with pleasure I've never known before. I finally let the tears go. They come flooding. They've been waiting for years. It's such a relief. Is it raining? I feel like I'm in the middle of a deluge, at least. Washing away all my fears, all of my sorrows, all of my anger, all of my pain, all of my ego. I become one with the world and the woman behind me. She's holding me tight, making me feel like the only important thing in this world. Everything else blurs. I feel something intense toward her, something I've never felt before. Is this love? I hope it is. This is not you, hisses a familiar, cynical voice in the back of my head. But it's okay. I never felt particularly fond of me anyway. New York, you're perfect. Oh, please don't change a thing. He who laughs in the shadows always has the last laugh. Hallelujah! Praise be! When everything is cliché, nothing is. Isn't that the ever-distant utopia I've been chasing all along? People on the other trains, I hope you're doing fine. God, shut up, just enjoy it. You finally understand. She's making love to me. She's giving birth to me. She is burying me. I'm pretty sure I've been dead for a while. I'm pretty sure I could stare at my own corpse in her hands from a distance. For a moment, somehow. And then I'm alive again. She lifts her mouth from my neck. No, wait. I taste blood in my mouth. Was I drinking her blood too? I realize that whatever this was, it's over. And I have to bask in the afterglow while I still can. While she's basking in her afterglow, I said earlier, if you feed your blood to a mortal, it turns them into a ghoul, which is essentially just a mortal with some slight supernatural abilities, and they stop aging. If you want to turn a person into an actual vampire, you need to bleed them dry and then give them your blood. You have to dry them first. Essentially, you need to die, and your blood replaces their own, essentially, and that starts the whole process of your blood changing them into this monster. If they're still fully alive, fully functioning, and have their own blood, your blood will be in them, essentially, for a bit, and this is what gives them their ability until their body eventually spends it, essentially. It goes back to the blood pool thing we were talking about before. Once, because they have their own blood pool too, it's just, let's say they have 10 of them, 9 of those points will be their own regular blood, and 1 of them will be yours. Once that one is spent, they no longer have any vampire blood in their system, and they turn back to being normal, regular people. In Vampire 5th Edition, I actually don't know how ghouls work because of the hunger system instead of the blood pool system, so I don't know what the rules are in terms of staying a ghoul or when you stop being a ghoul. I don't know. I'm actually very curious about it now that I've mentioned it out loud. If someone in the chat knows the answer to that, please feel free to educate me on this topic. I'm very curious to see the gist of how ghouls work in V5. But anyway, here I wanted to clarify this bit because just in case you were wondering why there was this bit there about her giving me her blood, it works. It's fine. It's just she had to drain me completely first. I also immediately understand that I'm going to chase this fleeting feeling for the rest of my existence. Oh, so very true. Finally, she lets out a whisper, which concludes the ceremony. No matter what happens next, don't forget, you're a monster. But you were lucky enough to be born into a world of monsters. So don't you ever mourn that fact. Embrace it. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Well played. Well played, Draw Distance. That was very cool. Nice. Love it. Okay. Well, that was a bit. That was better, I have to say. Coteries is a great game. Really, I'm never going to have anything wrong to say about Coteries. It's a great game. But it started you as you'd already been embraced. Now, I feel like I know who this character is. In Coteries, well, in Coteries you get to choose who you're going to play, so you're less of a character and more of an empty plate, and that's absolutely fine. A lot of games go for that, and we love them for that. There's nothing wrong with the approach that Coterie took. Personally, I'm more of a narrative-driven person, so I prefer to play a character with a predefined background and a predefined personality, so to speak. So I prefer the approach they took here for Shadows of New York, making me go through a part of the character's life, getting to know her personality, shape it as well, like we would have before. But essentially, I feel like this character is already a person. I'm not coming in to inhabit her. She's already her own person, and I just get to be along for the ride, which is personally something that I prefer. So so far, I'm really enjoying Shadows of New York. I already enjoyed Coteries a lot, but I'm preferring Shadows so far. And I've been a vampire for 4 seconds, so that's saying a lot. Once again, I find myself in the Big Beat Burger. Familiar surroundings, faces I recognize, mood, same as it ever was. Still, I process it in an entirely different way. It all frustrates me now. Or more precisely, makes me frustrated with myself. It's like I'm clinging to the remnants of a cocoon I've outgrown. Ugh. It's the same with these cigarettes. I don't need them anymore, so why do I keep holding on to them? Fucking hell, it's like I refuse to accept that I'm something better than I used to be. A vampire. Just 2 nights ago I met Karen. She embraced me, by which I mean she turned me into a kindred. She calls herself my sire, and me her child. I've already explained the embrace, I've already explained sire and child, but I have not explained kindred. Kindred is essentially another word for vampire, plain and simple. Vampires have a bit of their own language, so to speak, for certain key terms that they prefer to use. For example, it would be very gauche, a bit of a faux pas to go into a vampire gathering and start saying, "Hey, we're all vampires here." It wouldn't go too well. It wouldn't sit too well with them. So you can either use the word kindred or the word Canaanites. One or the other are preferred in some circles. Canaanite is a bit of an older term, I believe, and Wouldn't go too well in the Camarilla because they deny the existence of Cain and the antediluvians and all of the history. They're showing it's hogwash. Yeah, that's about it actually. Kindred, I don't know the history behind the word kindred per se, but I know it's the preferred word in most circles. Last night she taught me the basics of survival: drinking blood, manipulating humans, bending steel, controlling shadows. I believe those are directly referencing to the powers of the Lasombra clan. Well, of course, like every vampire, they can drink blood, but manipulating humans refers to the discipline known as dominate, which is essentially mind control. Bending steel refers to potency, which is supernatural strength, and controlling shadows, of course, is obtenebration, which is now called necromancy and/or oblivion. I'm not sure, which is the power to see through the veil, to see the dead, commune with the concept of oblivion, and control the shadows. Tonight I expected more lessons. Instead, she just told me to go out and enjoy myself. What's the catch? I asked, to which she responded, I might kill you if you prove to be a disappointment. There are a few rules. I have to uphold the Masquerade. I can't contact anyone I knew as a human. I can't let anyone realize I'm not human anymore. I can't embrace anyone, and so on. I've been told they didn't, because in the first game they explained all of these things to you, and I thought this one did not. So I'm pretty glad it's not the case. It means the pacing of the information is probably going to be slow enough for me to keep up explaining them. So that's good. I've already explained what a masquerade is, so I'm not going to go into that. She also said, I can't let anyone realize I'm not human. That's what we said. Can't embrace anyone. That's progeny, as I explained as well. Otherwise, I'm free to do whatever I want. But for some reason, the first thing I did was come back here. Old habits die hard. Karen is probably watching me from somewhere even now. The way I understand it, tomorrow night she is supposed to introduce me to the Camarilla, a local society of vampires. Okay. I didn't know if I would have to go into that tonight, but I guess I have. I have to. I said a bit before that the Lasombra were part of the Sabbat. That is no longer true in V5. I don't know the logistics behind it. I'm unfortunately not very familiar with how the lore has explained a couple of the things. But what I know is that the Lasombra have left the sinking ship that's the Sabbat and have joined the Camarilla very recently. In the book Chicago by Night, I believe it's called, is where they have reintroduced the Lasombra. So I assume the story is all detailed in there. But essentially now the Lasombra, which used to be essentially the leaders of the opposing faction, are now members of the Camarilla. I'm sure it's very weird for everyone involved, but it's what it is. I suppose I should explain a little bit more about the sects as well before we go into that. Let's see how they're... let's talk about essentially a bit about the interface here. This lets me see what's been said before if I need to read back things. And this is the dictionary, which is where they explain a couple of the things. I'm just curious to see how they define a Camarilla in a few short words, so I will check that and see if I need to add more details. The Camarilla, the big boys and girls in town, the largest vampire sect I know of, plays well with mortals, or rather plays mortals like a fiddle. Manipulative and rigid in structure, almost feudal really. There's a price involved, no joke. Heavily invested in maintaining the Masquerade and other so-called traditions, which helps with the two previous points. That's actually a very, very good overview, I guess, of the Camarilla. It's a lot more complex than that, obviously, but if I had to say it in a few words, that would be it. Pretty much everything is in there. The other sects that we've mentioned but haven't really explained is the Anarch movement. And the Anarch movement is essentially about freedom and rights. They are essentially they're sick of the manipulative and rigid structure, almost feudal aspect of the Camarilla and the Sabbat. They essentially want to give power to the neonates and take it away from the elders. They want to try to get something that is a bit more fair as a society than what the other two sects have been doing. And they're failing miserably at it because instead of having princes, they have barons. But at the end of the day, they're all vampires. They're still all monsters, and it's still it's better than Camarilla, but not a lot. They say they have no rules or say there is freedom, but at the end of the day, if you piss off the Baron, he's still gonna chop your head off the way any prince would. You still have to pay respects to the Baron. You still have to bend the knee almost as much as the Camarilla would. It's more open, more honest about it, I guess, because Camarilla is all about hypocrisy, to be perfectly blunt. Camarilla are hypocrites, a whole lot of them, at least their leadership. And essentially Camarilla is a sect that's all about controlling vampires, keeping them in check. Because the truth of the matter is they do believe in Cain and the upcoming Gehenna, the people who are the eldest of all the vampires. Well, they were there. They know if it was true. They know it is. And denying it and controlling the narrative essentially is a way for them to control the neonates so they can use them, essentially. The Camarilla is a tool for elders, plain and simple. Except now, obviously, with the beckoning and the fact that the elders are gone, well, the Camarilla is in a very interesting position, I should say. I'll be interested to see in the long run how that shapes V5. I have the book, actually. I've only read the core book, but there's also a book on the Anarchs and a book on the Camarilla, and now that we're having this conversation, I realize that I'm very intrigued about how the Camarilla has adapted to the elders leaving. So I think I will read Camarilla very soon. I want to see what they're doing with this. I'm intrigued. Let's go back to the game. We have a few minutes left. Actually, I do these streams from 7 to 9, and that's going to be in 5 minutes. But I do want to get my toes in a little bit because we just got embraced, and I'd like to see a bit more of the early days of this character becoming a Lasombra. Turns out they are the ones who have been systematically ruining my life lately. All a part of some secret evaluation that I barely passed. Just imagining the reach they have makes me dizzy. After they destroyed the old me that I barely cared about, Karen rebuilt me anew. On one hand, her test left some scars that will take time to heal. On the other hand, maybe I should just be grateful? I'm snapped out of my thoughts by a sudden scream. Some douchebag yelling about his french fries not being salty enough. I think this is my cue to leave. Permanently. Goodbye, BBB. I hope I never see you again. I'm destined for greater things, you see. Oh, hello. Okay. Anything gonna happen? Oh, okay. I can click. Essentially, this screen is you choosing which story threads you want to follow. It was there in Coteries of New York as well. What is this? Ah! Okay, I don't know what I just did, but let me just explain what I was going to explain anyway. In Coteries, you were giving several plot threads, and when you went into the screen, you were just choosing which thread you were going to follow for that particular night. And What I didn't know when I was playing the game of Colors of New York is that eventually the game just kind of ends. So if you're not done going through the plot threads that were interesting to you, then you have to play a game and just focus on them more. But I didn't know that. So when I was playing Colors, I was picking and choosing most of the threads. So when the game ended, I finished one of the storylines, I think, and barely started the other ones. So in this game, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on one as much as I can, and then move on to others if we still have time. I don't know if it's going to be like Coteries in the sense that I don't know if it's just like, for example, 20 nights and then the game ends. I have no idea, but I want to make sure that I see storylines from start to finish this time. So whatever I just did might just be the first story we're going to start and finish. I have no idea. I thought there was going to be a menu and not a whole thing. So let's see what this is. He lowers his eyes awkwardly, thinking how to proceed with his rent. Some dude. So it's like conversation isn't really smooth, yeah? It's like I keep throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks. But nothing seems to stick for long, you understand, yeah? Uh-huh. It's really this lack of context that's killing me about online dating. It's bad enough when a few photos and a single sentence are all you have to rely on when starting a conversation, yeah? But when a cosmic miracle finally happens, and she's actually willing to keep replying to you, and she's actually down to meet up eventually, and you're out there sitting with her, after 90 minutes, you still don't have that shared context, just no clue whatsoever. It's just like, take me out and put a bullet in my head and put me out of my misery. Uh-huh. So it's just one of those dates. It's like, we've been sitting here for ages, and the only thing she has a prolonged interest in is getting as hammered as possible. Just one drink after another. And the more drunk she is, the more familiar she's getting. It's these little things, you know? Touching my upper arms after each joke, her arm around my shoulder, her jokingly punching my waist. This escalation is subtle, but steady. In addition, one recurring topic appears. And that is all the cool shit she has and wishes she could have shown me. It's too bad it's all back in her apartment. That's when it hits me. She just wants to sleep with me. This happens with Tinder. Yeah, when you meet someone on Tinder, this happens sometimes. Yeah, well, eventually we both run out of ideas for topics that could potentially be interesting to both of us. So I'm just like, yeah, I'd sure love to see all that crap in your apartment. So we Uber there, and it's an admittedly pretty nice apartment. Like, nothing too fancy, but I can tell her dad is the kind of asshole I'd like to punch in the face if I ever met him, you know what I mean? So she guides me to the kitchen and makes me some tea and a rare Indian blend. I forgot what it was 5 minutes later. Then she excuses herself and goes to the bathroom and doesn't come back. 10 minutes later, I run out of tweets to read and become a little concerned. I start looking around. First thing that catches my eye is the kitchen table. Go on. The table is surprisingly large and it's covered in neatly arranged documents, like some connect the dots investigation board, mafia conspiracy kind of thing. Naturally, I take interest. It takes me 20 seconds to process what it is. Her entire mental health history, sorted chronologically, with all the juicy stuff neatly underlined in color. And I mean entire. It's all in there. A detailed description of her fucked up household situation over the years, anxiety, ADHD, bouts of depression, suspicions of schizophrenia, severe BPD, some weird psychosexual stuff with her brother. I keep reading and remember what I said about throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks. I'm dead certain that's how she... Sorry, let me start it again. I'm dead certain that's how her shrinks went about diagnosing her. She finally comes out of the bathroom like an hour after she went in. At this point, I've read all the shit on the table 3 times, and not just the stuff she's highlighted for my convenience. And I feel like right now, I understand her better than like someone who's read Crime and Punishment understands Raskolnikov. And I'm not happy about that, like, at all. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. She walks in with a cheerful, "Hi, I respond with a slick, all good. She nods, does this weird finger gun thing, and chuckles. I pretend I've been doing work-related stuff on my phone the whole time. Small talk starts. A minute in, she casually picks up one of the documents on the table and she starts doing these super obvious body language cues that are like, oh no, how did this get here? I'm practically dying inside, but I put on my cool face and make it look like I'm not here. Sorry, gotta reply to my boss. Yeah, he's working 24 seconds. Psycho motherfucker, yeah. She slowly collects all the documents, puts them away, and then nonchalantly asks me something about Tame Impala while I'm feeling crushed by all the kinds of trauma I've just learned about. The apartment starts feeling like a coffin. All of a sudden, she picks up a kitchen knife and starts playing with it in this zoned out state. I'm fucking mortified, so what do you think I did? Ran away, fought her, slept well, I don't know. It is scary, I suppose, and... Well, he said he was not pleased by it, so I guess ran away. He ran away. The thought crossed my head, but nah. As usual, I took the dumbest course of action and I fucking slept with her. That's how the worst 6 months of my life began. And I couldn't even say I didn't see it coming. God, I'm such a slut. He leans back and groans while hiding his face behind his palms. I look at his neck. Every vein seems so visible and impossibly alluring. I don't think I ever looked at anyone's neck like that. I realize I feel insanely thirsty. Damn. I know. You sure took a turn. Years ago when this rant began, it was about continental philosophy. What? Sorry, can you say that again? He's pretty drunk, barely able to focus on anything but his current train of thoughts. Just what I was hoping for. Years ago when this... never mind. Listen, it's stuffy in here. I want to go out and get some air. You haven't touched your drink. See what I told you before? Buy a drink. Don't touch it. I mean, I would if I could. No more alcohol for me. What? No, this one's not mine. I mean, some dude bought it for me, but I don't want it. He scans the room with a death stare, looking for the guy who did it, not realizing his best chance of finding him is in a mirror. Then he drinks like a half of my glass at once while looking around as if he was hoping to prove his dominance over an unseen enemy. Okay, after you. While walking across a mostly empty street, he's focused on keeping upright and walking in a straight line. I'm focused on finding a spot where I can drink him up. You seem like bad news. Oh yeah? So why don't you just leave me alone? Determinism, I guess? I roll my eyes, and that's when I notice it. A deep, underlit stairwell. I look around and realize there's no one around. This is my chance. I immediately yank him downstairs. It's almost pitch black, but I can still see his face. He doesn't seem shocked. It's more like awkwardness. Now listen, it's not that I, never wanted to do this sort of thing in public. Quite the opposite. It's just that I need a certain degree of comfort to perform at optimal levels. Oh, shut up. I sink my fangs inside of his neck, and he whimpers and becomes silent. Finally, that's what I've been waiting for the past hour. He relaxes in my arms, and I relax with him. It's like all the drinks I had to deny myself until now are hitting my head all at once, with no unpleasant side effects. I feel radiant. That's a thing too. At least it was in previous edition. I don't know if it's still true in V5, but obviously vampires can't drink anything. If they drink alcohol, it just kind of turns to ash and tastes nothing, and they gain no effects from it. But if they drink someone who's drunk or drugged, they can feel the effects of whatever is affecting that person. I don't want this moment to end, but it has to. I drop his body to the floor and lick the wound closed, just the way she taught me. His pulse is faint, but steady. He reeks of booze. If anyone finds him, there should be no suspicions. As I walk up the stairwell, I insert a finger into my mouth and try to sense my fangs. No dice. It seems they really are retractable. Well, that's handy. The hunger pangs are gone. I rub my hands around my body. I feel comfortable, hopeful, happy. Can't remember the last time I enjoyed life like this. Now let's keep this party going. Okay, so because I did that... Oh, no. Okay, we're in the midnight part. Okay, so there's something here I could have done, but now I can't. And I guess the symbol here that was there, which was the symbol for the Camarilla, I think. Barely had time to look at it. I guess that means go to feed. So now we have two other narrative threads, and I will pick one, and we're going to end there tonight because it's past 9. So it's pretty cool. We got embraced and we got to feed, so I guess that's a good place to stop. Here we have Danse Macabre. Time to swing a little more on the devil's dance floor. The club beckons. Here we have the... Is that the Ventru symbol? Oh no. This is do the thing. So I picked that thing, which I don't know what it was because I didn't read the text, and I said go for it. Okay. So I did that one. Okay. So now we can go do Danse Macabre, going to the club, or we can... No, that's the Lasombra symbol, I think. Been a while. I have to brush up on my symbols. Okay, so we can either go to the club or a meathead bully and his unfortunate victim. I probably shouldn't interfere, but what better chance could I find to test what I've become? I think I will try this one. There's more chance of doing some uptenebration, I suppose, which I'm looking forward to seeing because it's pretty cool power. And I think that this character, despite being Lasombra, is a good person, or tries to do justice in this world based on what we saw of her background. So I like the idea that she's trying to fight back, I guess, to protect someone. So we're gonna go with that. But before we do that, I wanted to make sure that y'all noticed that the streets here, all of these are arteries, essentially. We can see the blood flow through the major traffic arteries of the city, which is, well, I suppose it's an obvious metaphor, but not one that I've thought of before, and seeing it represented visually this way is extremely awesome, and I'm so digging this game so far. If anyone from Draw Distance sees this, great job. So let's go for some retributive justice, shall we? I'm just gonna read a line. Actually, we're not going to read this. It's better if we start from the beginning next week, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the menu, save and exit, and start back from there next week. So thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate the fact that you're watching my stream. If you're hearing me, obviously you're watching. So thank you very much for coming. I hope that you liked what you saw, both the game and the stream itself. Obviously, I try to showcase as much as I can of the video games currently that we are seeing that take place in the World of Darkness. More particularly, of course, Vampire, because that's not, sorry, Vampire, Werewolf, because that's the setting I know best. But I try to show a little bit of everything, so I couldn't miss the chance of showing Shadows of New York, which just came out 4 days ago. I was looking forward to it quite a bit, and it is not disappointed. And as I play, I like to do deep dive because I like sharing what I know. Essentially, I like telling stories and explaining things. It comes with the territory. In Werewolf, I'm what would be considered a Gallagher. Quite literally, I was born under the gibbous moon in real life, so it shows. I like sharing. I like being sort of a lore master, so when I play these games, I see it as an opportunity to explain these concepts as I go, so that if you're not necessarily familiar with these worlds that we now get the chance to play in, then you can get your full money's worth out of it. You get the explanation that the game might not have time to give you. And that's what I try to do when I play these games. So I hope you're enjoying that. And the other thing is I'm into game design quite a bit. I really enjoy conversations about game design theory. So in most games that I play, I try also to talk about the things that are being done, the techniques that are being used, why they work, and how they work, essentially. Of course, in a text-based game, there's less to say, especially since it's a revival of a genre. A long time ago, there used to be text adventures, they were called. There were text-based games back then, but they were literally just text on the screen. So now we're seeing a resurgence of these kinds of games, and they're the new generation of it, essentially. So they are right now setting the new norm, setting the way of doing things. So there's not as much to say because I can't compare to what was done before. This is literally a resurgence of an old style. They're setting the standards as we play them right now, and they're doing a really good job of it, so I don't have much to say in that respect, but I have been able to do so on occasion. So if you're into game design theory, that's another reason to stick around. So I hope you liked this tonight. I really did. I had a lot of fun. It's going to be hard not to play again until next week, but I will, because I do want to play blind, so I will refrain from doing so, and I'm really looking forward to see you all next week, Monday at 7 Eastern Time, again, to pick up where we left off. In the meantime, tomorrow morning, around 11 Eastern Time, I gave the link earlier in the chat. I will do so again. Here we go. For those who weren't there earlier on, if you want to be on the panel tomorrow, just to explain a little bit again, it's the developers of this game, the developers of Heart of the Forest, and the developers of Afterlife, which is based on Wraith the Oblivion, are going to do a stream tomorrow morning at the link I just gave you. And it's a pre-recorded stream, but there will be live chat, so if you want to get to know these people and talk to them, you can do so tomorrow. I will be in the chat tomorrow morning as well, and I recommend that you are as well, because not only is it a great opportunity to get to know the team behind these games, also they're really cool people. I got a chance to know a few of them over the past couple of months doing my stream, and those I spoke to were all really cool people. I had a lot of fun getting to know them a little bit, so I'm looking forward to have another opportunity to do so tomorrow morning in the live chat with the whole world, the entire internet, together in the same chat, celebrating a universe, the World of Darkness, that we all love. So looking forward to that. So see you all tomorrow morning, and good night. Or if you're not tomorrow morning, then see you all next week for the next episode of Shadows of New York, where we are going to go all Lasombra on some meathead's ass. See you soon.